make this investing mistake. The purpose of my content is to help the average individual realize that you can reach financial freedom, make work completely optional, in 10 years or less, even if you're not starting from the best position. I do my live streams every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific, and I go basically as long as I can to answer all of the questions. It's usually a few hours, so I make these shorter videos for those people who would never click on a 2-hour video. And there are people who like to get the content of the video in less than a minute. So that's my goal here at the 40-second mark. Don't make this investing mistake. And the investing mistake I'm going to talk about in this video that I don't want you to make is to buy an asset for personal use. 53 seconds. Got it in less than a minute. Well, let me explain what I mean. I don't mean don't buy a house to live in, right? That's an asset, but it turns into a liability when you live there because it's not making you money and it has an expense. But there are people who make this huge mistake of buying an asset for personal use. They say, not to call anybody out by name, Dan, but I would like to Airbnb in Mexico. So what I'm going to do is buy an Airbnb in Mexico, and so I'll have it for my personal use when I'm there, and then I'll make money on it when I'm not there. Okay? Or they say, not to call anybody out by name, Dan, but I'm going to buy an RV for personal use. But since I'm not going to use it all the time, I'm going to tow it out or rent it out or make money on it. Or I'm going to buy me one of them boats in the marina. I'm going to use it a couple of times because, it takes energy and effort to maintain and use a stupid thing. And they might be as lazy as me, Dan. And I'll rent it out when I'm not using it. It all sounds good on paper. Do you know what else sounds good on paper? That tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people have fallen for in the last century? Timeshares. I'm going to buy this thing, but only pay for the amount of time I'm going to use. Of course, then I'm going to be forced into using it. I'm going to have a really hard time getting out of it. My heirs are going to be screwed if they don't get out of it within 9 months of inheriting it, because then it's their responsibility and they have to get out of it the same way that I would when I bought it. And so there's a laundry list of reasons why you don't own a timeshare, but you're looking at buying an asset like an RV or a boat or something really stupid. Not to call anybody out by name, but Dion, I'd like to travel to Portugal. Maybe I'll buy me a property in Portugal, so when I'm not there, I can Airbnb it. I can Vrbo it. I can make money when I'm not using it for myself. And then when I want to travel, I've got a place in Portugal to go to. How stupid does that guy sound? Yes, I just looked at myself. So let's look at the boat thing. You have a slip. How many people are going to obey the marina's laws and rules before you get into trouble? How many times is there going to be a maintenance item that happens during use when a tenant's in it? Let's say it's that RV and Dan now wants to travel, but he's got a tenant in there that says, hey, I'd like a really long lease because I really like the way this is situated. So I'm going to sit here on this RV pad and make you permanent money every month. So now you've got this asset that you can't use. So it's not for the purpose that you bought it, but it's also making you money now. For the people who are thinking of buying in another state, I know people who are terrified of buying out of their own state, right? They look at investing in another state and they hesitate for years, right? Or to find the systems, get the boots on the ground in place to do that. But you think it's going to be easier to buy in another country because you watched a few YouTube videos of somebody who purchased there when prices were significantly less, right? They tripled in price since I watched videos on Portugal to when I went to Portugal last year and spent a couple of months there learning that I don't want to buy in Portugal. At the end of this video, I have two things. One, a solution to what you do instead of buying an asset for personal use. And two, I'm going to explain how I lie about money. Definitely an overshare for a short video. So if you're going to buy in another country, do you know that country's laws? You can educate yourself on it, sort of, unless they're wishy-washy like Portugal, where they just go, we pretty much do this, and this is how the seller lies to the government, and you're the buyer, you don't get a say in this, and you're the one that's going to go to jail if they call you out on it not being the actual purchase price, but the seller's the one paying the taxes, so we let them do that. Do you know the culture of that country? Are you buying in a place where you're going to Airbnb and you need a cleaning service, but they work on, no offense, Michelle, Colombian time, because I spent some time in Colombia and I have some Colombian friends. And if you say, hey, we're going to meet Thursday at 3 o'clock, that means you're going to probably see them this week sometime. Love Colombians, great people. They live on their own time. They don't have watches. There are no horologists in Colombia because no one cares if their timepieces work. Do you know the economic drivers of that country? Right? Until I went to Portugal, I had no idea that they produce billions and billions of dollars annually on corks. They make corks. It's one of their largest drivers. Didn't know that? Go there. You're going to take the time to learn that? Do you know the economic drivers of the country you're looking at? If you're going to invest in India, do you know what company is like Boeing that's in India, that has a huge plant like Boeing in India? Do you? Think about it right now. Could you answer me if I said, what's a big company in India? By the way, I'll answer it for you. It's Boeing. It's one of their largest plants outside of the US. But if you didn't know that when I was saying that, make sure you take the time to educate yourself on the countries that you're looking at. Culture, laws, economic drivers. And then the really big bad thing with owning a boat or an RV or an asset that you purchased for your own personal use is I'm teaching people how to reach financial freedom. And as I learned the other day talking to Pace Morby on the One Rental at a Time channel, where I actually kind of called him out. I respect him, love what he's doing. You can learn a ton from him, but I don't want to be him because I don't think he's thinking big enough. And if you're thinking about buying an RV or a boat or an Airbnb in another country for personal use, I don't think you're thinking big enough. So Pace has a lead generation, sales teams, $500,000 in payroll every 2 weeks, makes hundreds of millions of dollars in transactions happen. Super rich guy. By every metric on money, he's doing better, right? But at the beginning of this video, I didn't say I teach people how to get rich or how to make more money. I teach you how to make work optional in 10 years or less, even if you're not starting from the best position. It takes me 2 hours a month to self-manage my 18 rental units. I live in one as a house hack, which he didn't even like that. And then I explained why house hack, so I can travel and there's somebody on my property. It is the solution to how to have an Airbnb in another country. But how much time does Pace have as freedom? Managing his sales teams, dealing with hundreds of thousands of dollars in deals and dealing with attorneys and LLCs and making more money. But does he have time freedom? Does Grant Cardone have time freedom? Do the people that you want to learn from, make sure they're doing what you want to do, but they're also living the life you want to live? If you enjoy being busy and working 20-hour days to achieve what Pace has, go for it. I worked plenty of 15 to 20-hour days to make the money, to invest, so that I never have to do that again. So the solution, my solution to I want to own an Airbnb in another country, it's like a timeshare. Imagine having a timeshare in Florida, down in the Keys, and you want to go to Montana to go hunting. How does that timeshare help you? Same thing with an Airbnb in Portugal. I think it's way better scuba diving in Thailand, right? The waters were about the same temperature, but there were less things trying to unalive me in Thailand and more interesting things to see in the water. There's literally an island that used to be a prison island, and you could see most of the prison under the water. I am not seeing that in Portugal. But if I owned an Airbnb in Portugal, it's like my timeshare that I'm tied to Portugal. So instead of buying the boat, the RV, the Airbnb that I'm going to use for personal use occasionally, I buy, just like I would for healthcare, for food, for travel, for my vehicle, an asset for every expense. And Matt, you're absolutely right. The lumberjack landlord, you got to right size it. You got to figure out what size investing or portfolio or life that you're trying to build is right sized for you. Title of his next porn video. So the solution for me was to buy another cash flowing property in the United States. To take the cash flow from that property, like I've got the food duplex, I've got the healthcare triplex, I've got the vodka fourplex and the vehicle duplex. I now have the travel duplex. I live in it, a house hack for free. I get paid from the tenant who's living here, makes more money than the property taxes and the insurance. If I moved out, it would make more money than if I put a mortgage on the place. So it's a cash flowing asset that accrues cash every single month. So 12 months out of the year, it's making money. Now, I want to go to another country for 2 months. 12 months worth of income on this one cash flowing asset that is my travel expenses. So for those months when I go to Thailand in the winter, or probably Scotland, I think might be one of my next trips, the cash flow from this asset, it pays for it, and I'm not tied into going to the one place where I bought in one country. I can go and rent an RV with cash flow because cash flow set me free to buy the RV that I don't have to keep registered, insure, maintain, store, deal with short-term or mid-term rentals when that's not my strategy. Dan, it's not your strategy either. But don't make that mistake. Make the money that buys you the thing you want. Don't buy the thing you want so that you have use of it and try to make money with it. To reference Matt the Lumberjack Landlord, thank you for the super chat. Matt and I are fans of McDonald's. A treat for them was going to the dollar menu at McDonald's. Now it's a $3 menu, whatever. I'm a fan. There's no burger on the planet as good as the Big Mac. I've tried $200 burgers at the fancy restaurants. I've tried homemade, never had one. I like the hamburger. Do I buy McDonald's shares and wait for dividends to pay to go eat at McDonald's? That would be, use the R word here, really stupid. Really, really stupid. Instead, I buy cash flowing assets that produce money that I can go eat in any restaurant I want. And about once every other month, it's McDonald's. About what my body can handle anymore. Love the taste, don't like the outcome. An asset for every expense. Buy an asset that serves its purpose as an asset that produces the income that you use to cover the expense of the thing you want to do. That's the solution. Now here's how I lie about money. And this is just an overshare for those people that do stay around past 11 minutes in a video. They usually get this stuff in the 2-hour videos. How I lie about money. And this is going to be an absolute transparent overshare. You can hate me all you want. Come at me in the comments. Because I've lied in 2 different ways about money. First, when I was poor. I don't know if you know this or not. Heterosexual male. Face like this. Not easy to get hooked up. But I like the women. And I didn't have a lot of money. So here's a really dirty trick I used to pull to lie about money. Of course, I would drive a bigger car than I could afford. Right? I had before I got into money and learning how to invest and driving older cars, I had an Eddie Bauer edition of the Ford Explorer, Ford Excursion, like biggest, weirdest SUV looking thing to fit all the single parent mothers is the only ones I could find to date me at the time. So I needed room for their kids. Standards were pretty low for me. So more car than I can afford, bigger payment than I can afford. So it looked like I was more successful than I was. I used to dress really nice, right? I had almost all button-up shirts. That's why my first several videos was work shirts, because outside of work, all I really had was kind of fancy stuff. I wanted to look like I had money, and this is the dirty trick of it. I would go to banks, and I would look through the receipts that were left at banks, and I would find an ATM receipt that had a large balance. I usually had $200 or $300 in the bank at this time, and I would look for balances to me that seemed large, $13,000, $27,000, whatever, seemed like a big amount at the time, and I would just randomly put that piece of paper in my pocket. And then, before cell phones and apps and you could just exchange numbers really quick with a cell phone, this was back in the dinosaur days when you had to actually have a little game and talk to people. And you meet somebody and you exchange numbers, I would say, oh, okay, here, and I pull this piece of paper out of my pocket like I just randomly had this on me, write down my number on the back and hand it to them like I wasn't thinking about what the paper was. It's just what I had on me. So then they leave, and if they're shallow enough to be gold diggers and the amount of money on a receipt from an ATM mattered to them, that's how I tricked them into thinking I had more money than I did. So I would lie about how much money I had. And then you flip the coin. In 2020, I passed that millionaire status, right? $1 million in net worth, $1 million in debt. Now it's a little over 3 million. You all almost never catch me out of anything but a t-shirt. I generally wear Saucony running shoes, right? Like to run, like Saucony, best brand out there. They're not a sponsor of the show. I just enjoy them, but they're not the expensive ones. They're like $100. And if you buy last year's bin, because I don't care about the style, I like the comfort and the precision of the shoe. They're like $40 for really good shoes. I drive a 10-year-old F-150. I might upgrade it in the next year or two. It's not 10 years old yet, but it's getting there, to something that'll be 3 years old when I buy it. I portray myself often in clothes that have paint on them. Dirty shoes. I don't wear button-ups. I don't wear fancy clothes. I don't wear it in the videos because you guys know who I am and trying to be as transparent as possible here. But in the wild, when I'm finding the random female who might actually take the time to talk to me, I make sure that it's not because I have money and can give them time freedom. And like my brother, willing to pay for everything so that they could travel with us. I don't want that to be the experience they see. I want to find the person that thinks, they've earned theirs, I've earned mine, maybe we can enjoy life together. Friends, or girlfriends, doesn't matter. That's how I lie about money. I do feel weird when I go into most places and I look around and I think, there might be someone here who has more money than me, but I don't know anybody who has more time than I do. I don't even think the billionaires have more time than I do, because it takes more time to manage what they're doing versus my 2 hours a month. What does Bill Gates have to do to manage what he's doing? It's possible that it's less than 2 hours a month, but with his drive and life goals and growth that he's been on a trajectory for, I don't think that's his life. I think he's a little bit more like Pace. And Pace is out there going, that's a great point, Lumberjack. Only dead people have more time than me. And you can go to a cemetery, sit around and think, I'm doing better than everybody here for now. I hope this video at least made you think. I hope my overshare at the end didn't make you unsubscribe, because I was being as truthful and transparent as I could. That is a dirty trick that you can use. This video was able to last this long in the Pacific Northwest while the sun is actually singeing me. And no, that's not a salmon egg, Lovita. It's a Game of Thrones egg, because I'm a nerd. Another one of the reasons why I'm single. You guys have a day full of awesome. Make sure that you show up tonight at 6 p.m. Pacific on Thursdays for Matt the Lumberjack Live's Landlord's live stream, where tonight he's going to break down his takeaways from talking with Pace Morby.